Trump's DOJ just did something that could blow up some of the most high-profile prosecutions in America, not with a secret deal, not with hidden documents, but with words, public comments, out in the open. Yeah, you heard that right. The President, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and even Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem have all gone on record with politically charged remarks about ongoing criminal cases. And now, federal judges are furious. We're talking about prosecutions involving murder, migrant smuggling, even former FBI Director James Comey. Judges are warning these statements could poison jurors and derail trials, and maybe, just maybe, let defendants walk free. Here's the kicker. Defense attorneys are already filing motions, arguing Trump's DOJ just handed them a legal weapon, and the fallout could change everything we think we know about justice in America. So how did we get here? Let's rewind a few days. The Department of Justice has been pursuing several politically sensitive cases, including charges tied to violent crime, immigration enforcement, and high-profile figures like James Comey. These are the kinds of cases where the stakes are enormous, both legally and politically. But instead of keeping the traditional wall of silence, the no comment on active investigations rule the DOJ has lived by for decades, Trump's administration broke it. In speeches, interviews, and even off-the-cuff remarks, key officials spoke about the guilt of defendants, the seriousness of crimes, and the message these prosecutions should send. Judges noticed, and they did not stay quiet. From federal benches came sharp warnings. This kind of rhetoric risks prejudicing jurors and undermining the fairness of trials. One judge even suggested that comments from top officials could be grounds for excluding evidence or, worse, dismissing charges entirely.
Think about that. Cases years in the making could unravel because politicians couldn't keep their mouths shut. This isn't just a slip, it's a pattern. And in Washington, patterns always mean politics. The explosive development, judges calling out Trump's DOJ in open court. In a migrant smuggling trial, defense attorneys pointed directly to Kristi Noem's statements about cartels flooding our borders as proof that the government had poisoned the jury pool. In another case, tied to violent crime, the defense filed motions arguing that Trump himself had declared guilt before trial, violating due process. And in the case involving former FBI Director Comey, lawyers are already drafting arguments that political vendettas from the White House tainted the prosecution. Pam Bondi, Trump's Attorney General, only added fuel. In a televised press conference, she called one defendant a monster who deserves the ultimate penalty. Defense attorneys seized on it immediately, filing motions to bar death penalty charges, claiming the government's impartiality was compromised. The courtroom drama turned into a media circus. CNN ran banners reading, "TMW DOJ comments undermine rule of law." Fox News framed it as Democrats weaponizing technicalities to let criminals escape. Twitter exploded with hashtag #TrumpDOJ trending, with half the country demanding accountability and the other half cheering the tough talk. Inside the DOJ, prosecutors are furious. Career attorneys know how fragile trials can be. One poorly timed remark, one suggestion of political bias, and years of work can vanish in an instant. But in Trump's Washington, political points often outweigh prosecutorial caution. And judges are not bluffing. Several have already hinted at sanctions, restrictions on prosecutors, or gag orders for officials. In extreme cases, they could dismiss charges outright, a nuclear option, but one that defense lawyers are now openly demanding.
Here's the shocker. If even one major case collapses, it sends a message across the justice system that politics, not law, decides outcomes. And that's exactly the narrative Trump's critics have been warning about for years. So what happens now? First, the courtroom fallout. Defense attorneys across the country are combing through every word said by Trump, Bondi, and Noem, and others, hunting for ammunition. Already, motions are stacking up. Motions to dismiss, motions to suppress evidence, motions to block death penalty charges. Judges must now decide whether justice can proceed untainted. Second, the political fallout. Democrats are hammering the administration, accusing Trump of doing exactly what he accused his predecessors of, politicizing justice. Senator Senator Adam Schiff warned that if defendants walk because of this White House's loose talk, it will be a stain on our entire justice system. Representative Ilhan Omar tweeted that justice has collapsed into propaganda. Republicans, meanwhile, are split. Trump loyalists cheer the comments as speaking truth and cutting through liberal spin. But moderates whisper warnings. If cases collapse, the public will blame Republicans for letting criminals walk free. Third, the constitutional fallout. Judges are openly raising concerns about separation of powers. The executive branch prosecutes, yes, but when top officials publicly prejudge cases, they risk trampling defendants' constitutional rights. If that leads to acquittals or dismissals, it undermines not just one administration, but the credibility of the justice system. And don't underestimate the international fallout. America lectures the world about rule of law, fair trials, and independent justice. But if headlines abroad read, "Trump DOJ torpedoes its own prosecutions," it damages U.S. credibility everywhere from Brussels to Beijing.
This isn't just talk. Actual investigators are reviewing whether prosecutorial decisions were influenced by political pressure. Some insiders are whispering that career DOJ staff are considering resignations. But here's the pivot, the line nobody's talking about. What happens if this doesn't just taint a few cases, but sets off a chain reaction that unravels the biggest prosecutions in America? Because if that happens, it's not just about defendants walking free. It's about justice itself collapsing under the weight of politics. Now let's dig deeper. Why does this matter far beyond one trial or one administration? Because justice in America depends on trust. Trust that the DOJ prosecutes fairly. Trust that jurors hear cases untainted. Trust that presidents and cabinet members stay above the fray. Break that trust, and the entire system wobbles. This isn't the first time politics infected prosecutions. Richard Nixon tried to weaponize the DOJ during Watergate. Bill Clinton clashed with independent counsels in the 90s. Even Barack Obama faced accusations of politicized prosecutions from Republicans. But the key difference? Most of those battles happened behind the scenes. Trump's White House is breaking that tradition. By going public, by using microphones and cameras to frame guilt, they're dragging trials into the arena of partisan warfare, and that's dangerous. It's also strategic. Trump thrives on conflict. To his base, tough talk proves he's fighting enemies of America. To Democrats, it proves he's undermining the rule of law. And that polarization itself is the strategy. If half the country believes trials are rigged, then verdicts, guilty or not, become just another partisan talking point.
The constitutional crack here is enormous. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a fair trial. If jurors believe the president himself has already declared guilt, how can they remain impartial? Judges know it, defense attorneys know it, and soon the American public may see it firsthand. So what's at stake isn't just whether one defendant goes free, it's whether Americans still believe in the idea of justice. So what happens next? Let's map out 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, judges crack down. Courts impose gag orders. DOJ officials are barred from speaking about ongoing cases. Some charges get trimmed, but trials move forward. The justice system takes a reputational hit, but survives. Scenario 2, cases collapse. At least one major prosecution, maybe the migrant smuggling case, maybe the Comey case, is dismissed outright. Defense attorneys celebrate, Democrats rage, Republicans spin it as proof of liberal judges sabotaging justice. Public trust sinks. Scenario 3, constitutional crisis. The freeze between branches escalates. Congress investigates DOJ interference. Democrats push for hearings, maybe even impeachment-style inquiries. Trump rallies his base, framing it as persecution. The justice system becomes another front in America's never-ending political war. So each scenario carries risks, each deepens polarization, and none restores the trust that's already been shattered. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Do you think this is accountability, officials speaking hard truths, or is it pure revenge politics, a way of bending justice until it snaps? Because here's the reality. If judges dismiss cases because of these comments, the fallout won't just be political. It will be personal. It will be families who never see justice. It will be victims who feel betrayed. It will be Americans who wake up wondering whether their justice system works at all. And if justice collapses once, what's to stop it from collapsing again? Think about that. Like, share, and subscribe, because trust me, this story is just beginning.